The fact that the clones under his command so blindly followed orders, inflicting such carnage without hesitation, gives me pause. It is time for a change. We shall usher in a new era.
Of all the ways this season could have concluded for a midpoint break, or what would be the conventional stopping point for a TV series, certainly had me on the ropes emotionally, and by the end, the killing blow stings, but the likelihood of things remaining this way going forward would be a major misstep in my mind for now, and a true departure of why audiences have grown to love this series. Truth be told, ironic given the episode name, this felt like an appropriate shift in the direction for the crew right now, given the continual back and forth and interpersonal war between them over their positions in the galaxy and what they do now. The first half of the season has had that threat looming overhead, with one character potentially on his way out the door, longing for a more fulfilling purpose in life, and trying to aid in the galaxy's growing state of despair and disrepute. I didn't have this on my Bad Batch bingo card admittedly for how this would end, but I think I'll get used to it if it does remain this way. And aside from this character's journey coming to a close in this installment, there's a fuckload more to discuss. So let's break this episode down and then have a natter after, eh?
Cool.
We open on the Batchers taking a break inside the Marauder, where we see Omega trying to practice meditative methods that Gungi taught her in the last installment, but she's struggling to find her inner calm.
All of those sounds that are trapped in your mind.
Echo approaches her and they discuss the reason for his addition to the group, and how he doesn't enjoy solitude, giving reference to his time on Skako Minor. He mentions that he joined the group because this is where he felt like he belonged, where he was needed at least, and they're interrupted by an incoming call from Rex, who's requesting their help to infiltrate a cruiser for a data extraction. After a bit of back and forth, Echo steps up and accepts the mission on their behalf, and they make their way to Coruscant. When they land on Trace and Rafa's Bay, they are introduced quickly to Senator Chuchi, who takes a liking to Omega and explains what's happened so far. Rex also shows them the latest use for the clones right now, with the body of the assassin, and mentions that all traces of his identity have been wiped. Rex informs them that while they cannot be a physical voice for the clones in the Senate, given that they're all dead in the eyes of the Empire, he wants them to help acquire the data log that Slip mentioned to Chuchi in the last episode that contains the evidence of Rampart's actions on Kamino. Bail later meets up with Chuchi and Omega, where he's informed of the Batch's involvement in trying to acquire the evidence. He advises that Chuchi speak with Senator Batoni, who might be able to strengthen her argument in the Senate. Bail points out that she was part of the Defense Finance Committee until she was let go by the end of the war, so she may be able to pinpoint where some of the funds have gone for Rampart's projects. In the meeting with Batoni, Chuchi and Omega manage to get the answers they want from her about Rampart diverting funds, and Omega rattles her a little bit with a revelation about Kamino's true destruction. Chuchi tries to ask for her voice in the vote, but Batoni points out that it will be pointless without concrete evidence. Cut to the shipyard, where the crew are making their way to the bridge of Rampart's Venator undetected, and the only complication now is to acquire the data that they need. However, to do so, they must restore unauthorized power back to the ship. Tech proceeds to do so, while the rest stave off attacks from inside and outside the ship from incoming forces, with Hunter utilising plans 14, 5 and 86, much to Wrecker's confusion. They manage to escape and get the information back to Omega. While she makes the run for the chambers, however, the discussions begin with Rampart seemingly conceding over the provisions for clones beyond the phasing period. Chuchi steps in to delay the vote until Omega can drop off the evidence to Bail. Chuchi makes public accusations against Rampart's misuse of funds and shows the evidence later about his involvement with the destruction of Kamino. This is where the haunting Sith chants begin, and we're graced by the presence of one Emperor Palpatine.
Fuck.
Who has no choice but to accept this evidence and charges Rampart with treachery against the Empire. However, he uses this to twist the narrative and the true purpose of this evidence, and sways the vote, stating that the clones were equal party to this, and hereby decrees that the Imperial Defense Program must be implemented. We cut to Rex, who realised this, and that they played right into his hands, and that the fates of the clones going forward is now sealed because of their actions. It's here where we end on a shocking revelation that Echo is leaving the group to aid Rex with locating more troopers. He wants to support his brothers in the larger fight against the Empire, and the Batchers are happy to accept this and support his decision. The only conflicting aspect to this is in fact Omega, who struggles to comprehend him leaving and going forward without him as part of the crew. He goes on to assure her that this isn't forever, and we close on her hugging him goodbye. The weight of this one can be felt by the end, and the implications for what comes next are dire for the clones, but to know at least that Echo is out there fighting the good fight alongside Rex and Gregor gives me hope that there's a future for Echo. The question is, however, where does that end? We know by the time of Rebels that Wolf and Gregor are the only known survivors alongside Rex, with mentions of Cody and other troopers long gone. So does this signal the end at some point with Echo? All subjective for sure, and it's up to you to theorize what will become of him, but to see Echo's journey progress in such a drastic way is shocking but actually appropriate for the state of his character right now. If I'm honest, it's felt like he's been stuck in a state of limbo for much of the season, and honestly, throughout much of Season 1. Echo has mentioned at multiple points throughout this that they should be doing more, and was particularly frustrated with Hunter following their last encounter with Rex in Season 1, having not gone with them. Hunter's walking the path of safety, whereas Echo wants to give back. He had his life stripped from him for so long that he felt like he missed out on a chance to truly support something good, and something that mattered to him, and while he was willing to accept that the war was over, he couldn't get past the fact that his mission wasn't. The aim of the clones was to kill in the end, but they understood that as the war progressed, they became saviors, protectors, and even liberators in the eyes of many, and many of them took this as their personal moral mission, which explains why the likes of Cody started to see the twisted logic. Echo is the prime example of undying loyalty that the clones possess, but to a moral path that will allow him to fulfill that intention of his design in a more holistic way. That should anything need to be killed, it will be in service to a greater goal, and that's firstly the freedom of his brothers. It's often forgotten that he is a Reg, so he'll have a natural connection and duty to the rest of the army, more than the Batchers ever would, as there was a natural divide between them throughout the war, with only a select few becoming their friends after enduring harsh moments with them. I was genuinely devastated in the moment, as Echo is my favourite of the bunch, and even with his departure that won't change. I'm glad to see the writers understand their limitations with his character, and that basically everything he could do, Tech could do far better than he could in some cases, so he was just a token add-on in a lot of ways, as the crew likely felt bad following the events of Skako. I would rather that shows do this sometimes, where if they become creatively spent and cannot justify a reason for keeping a character around for a bit, don't kill them off if you can help it. Place them somewhere else. Have them do something in the background for a bit, until you have a moment where you could genuinely use them. It shows far greater competence and restraint from the writer's room, and great respect for the character in question. I look forward to seeing Echo return to our screens in the near future, and hopefully before the season ends. I'm curious if they might jump the gun a little bit and bring him back literally in the next episode, implying that there's a possible time jump for the second half of the season, but regardless of how they do it, I'll look forward to seeing him again anyway, and this will likely leave a bit of room open on the Marauder for Crosshair. On to other matters though involved with this installment, the biggest talking point coming out of the Season 2 trailer was undoubtedly this man. Palpatine was brought back in Tales of the Jedi, so with them both likely being produced at a similar point in time, it made sense to use Ian whilst he was there, to provide that guttural, menacing vocal tone once more for this, and fuck what a welcomed inclusion. Palpatine doesn't need to scream for long, as you understand the threat he possesses, whether he's clumsily spinning around with a lightsaber, or proving who the true cerebral assassin actually is, and manipulating a seemingly compromising situation to his plans to become the strength he needed to push that agenda forward. He's a devious mastermind, and it's minimal appearances like this that reinforce the threat that he can be, not this desperate misuse to push a certain Mary Sue. To have him so closely involved with the fall of the clones here wasn't surprising when you consider he took matters into his own hands in disrupting Fives' attempts to expose the true intentions mention of the clones back in Season 6 of Clone Wars. I'm curious if this will be the last time we'll see him for now, or if he'll have any hand in events going forward for Season 2 or 3, and I'm curious to know how he'll deal with Rampart. I mentioned last episode that I was praising the use of Rampart in my Season 1 reviews for the Ryloth arc, and how much potential he had as a regular antagonist for the show, but as that seems to be it for now, and we didn't see any visible signs of death nor mention of one, I wonder if he could still have his uses. I would love to see that he's still around, but only time will tell. It was interesting to witness Rampart steadily become shaken by this effort to cover his tracks, and actually, for all of the calm and pretentious bravado that he carries, he was shitting himself the whole time, at the very prospect that the true cost of failure will likely come from the hands of the Emperor. The ingenuity of the batch was fucking awesome. We got to witness some of their plans in motion and how fluidly they pull them off. From crashing Rampart's ship inland to jettisoning the escape pods in order to create confusion, and then activating the cannons using Echo, a plan of which I'd assume was only created because of his capabilities, but regardless was really freaking cool. The return of Rex, as I mentioned in the last episode, was a delight, and it's great to see the confidence he now possesses in the face of everything happening around him, and I wonder if the first thing he and Echo will chase up on is the clone assassin that was manufactured. We saw in Season 1 with Crosshair that the chip can be intensified, but given they destroyed the facilities on Kamino, one would wonder if this was something Rampart created before its destruction, and that he's had this personal assassin this whole time, or if this is genuinely just a clone that truly believes in the cause of the Empire. Either way, it's a fascinating development for the clone army, and one that I'd really like to get more information from. Anyway, these two episodes were incredible, truly visual masterpieces to come out of Star Wars animation, and I would seriously recommend them to anyone looking for a mature and nuanced experience. That's all I've got for this one though. If you have any thoughts regarding these two episodes, drop them below. Leave a like and subscribe for more content down the road, and until next time everyone, take care, and may the Force be with you.